Well, good evening and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. We're taking our time out to chat to some people and think about how our Christian life can progress, how we can become better disciples of Jesus Christ. And we're tackling current affairs. And I guess one of the major current affairs in the news at the moment is child poverty around the world, although it's getting clouded out by a lot of other things and what's happening in Parliament. There's so many children, especially right now in Afghanistan, that are really suffering. So it's my privilege to introduce to you James from Compassion UK. Me and James had a bit of a McDonald's the other day and a good chat, which is always welcome. Thank you, James. And just talked about what was going on really in terms of what's happening with children around the world. And I think it's important as Christians that, you know, we take the time out to understand, to pray, and then to do something that can change the situation. So give us a bit of a background about you, James, and tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I've worked for Compassion, a child development charity that work in particular with children living in extreme poverty, and I've worked for Compassion for about 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I worked in the business world. I was in sales. My last role, I was a sales director for a big security company, but I felt increasingly God calling me out of that line of work and into a Christian ministry. And so I've had the privilege of working for a fantastic organisation for the last 2.5 years. And my job is to help nurture and develop relationships with churches here in the UK and specifically in the West Midlands region. Brilliant.
And we had a good chat, didn't we, the other day? And one of the things that shocked me really was how many children are out in abject poverty across the world. Just paint a picture as to what that looks like in terms of monetary value, would you?
Yeah, so extreme poverty is defined as anyone living with a household income of less than $1.90 per day. So roughly speaking, that works out about £30 a month.
Which is nothing at all, is it really, when you think about it?
No, well, when you consider that that's a household income, it really isn't enough for the bare essentials of life. So food, water, medical supplies, just the basics that many of us take for granted.
And also, we're not talking perhaps just about one child in a household, are we? We're probably talking about several, especially in some of the developing countries.
Yeah, in poorer communities, there do tend to be more children than we would experience here in the UK per family. So there's less to go around, even more so when you consider that there are large family sizes in many of the families that we encounter.
And I guess we have a tendency of thinking most of the time that poverty is situated in Africa and that continent, but that wouldn't be true, would it?
No, well, Compassion work in 25 countries. So we work across Central and South America. So we work in countries like Mexico and Colombia, where you perhaps wouldn't associate extreme poverty being such an issue as you would in African countries. We work in Africa, across several African countries. And in Asia too, places like Thailand and Indonesia as well. Still really significant levels of extreme poverty in those countries too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's reticence for trying to help in and reaching out to some of these people and countries is that, you know, especially with the government at the moment giving away a percentage of our gross income, there's a tendency to believe that we're propping up regimes and, you know, people that we shouldn't. But Compassion is straight to the end users, and it's straight for the people that need the money.
Yeah, well, the way Compassion works is we work exclusively with local churches in the communities that we serve. So these churches know their communities better than anybody else. They know the families that are struggling, and they're able to reach out and just lend a hand to those that are most in need. And Compassion have a really robust financial due diligence that we do with the church partners. They have to go through a process that takes about 2 years at least before they can come on board with Compassion, be a Compassion partner church. And they have to demonstrate that they're already working in the community and already serving children and young people. And Compassion come along and really just help them accelerate and turbocharge the work that they're already doing. So yeah, it's filtered through the church. But we do work in largely in countries where there is freedom of religion, and particularly the Christian faith is allowed to be expressed. So we work often in conjunction and with the support of central and local governments as well.
I think one of the beauties of what you do as well is that you know very well that the money that you're sending is making a difference in the life of an individual rather than a big project. See, we've gone live. You see, this is Webinar Wednesday for you. There's his dog barking. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. He's obviously heard a noise. Yeah, so excuse me. I thought that might happen. Yeah, so what were we saying?
We're saying that the money was going right to the children that need it, rather than being thrown at a big sort of project that's been kind of managed across a region. It goes to an individual, doesn't it?
Yeah, and compassion do a lot of research, and our research shows that we're able to support those the children that are living in the most extreme circumstances. The support that compassion are able to offer achieves the best outcomes in those circumstances. So it's really in our interest and in those children's interest to really identify those children, and that local church is always best placed to know who those children are and reach out to them.
Yeah, and there's a relationship built, isn't there, between the people who are donating to those children and the children themselves? Yes.
So much of what Compassion do, about 3/4 of the money we raise is raised through child sponsorship. So that's where an individual connects directly with a child, and they're able to write to them, they're able to pray for them, and of course they support them financially as well by giving them the resources they need, by enabling them to start and continue their education, and just meet any need that is seen that the child may have.
Yeah, there's always that preacher story, isn't there? They always tell it, and being a preacher, I'll say it again. You know, there's that little lad that's walking down the beach, and there's a lot of starfish that are marooned on the sand, and he starts throwing them in one at a time. And his mom says, "That's not going to make a difference," and he said, "It is to the one I'm throwing in." And I think that's the message we want to get across.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to help as many children as we possibly can, and which is why that we invest some of the resources that our supporters give us in trying to grow our ministry and reach even more children. Because the more children we can help, Compassion currently support about 2 million children around the world, which sounds like an incredible number, does it? Sounds like we're doing a great job. But pre-pandemic, there were 450 million children living in extreme poverty. Yeah. And the UN estimates that there's probably another 40 to 60 million fallen into extreme poverty as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So extreme poverty, which has been falling, it's been on the decline for decades, has actually risen again as a result of the pandemic. So there is, whilst we're doing so much for so many, there is just so much more to do. So it's so important that where people are able to, that they just lend a hand and come alongside a child and help release them.
Yeah, let me encourage your church as well. You know, sometimes you think, oh, I can't really afford to pay monthly out to sponsor a child. Well, we sponsor a child from our kids' work at Sedgley, so we have a child that we sponsor. But it could be that 2 or 3 of you actually get together and do it collectively. And again, just take time out each week to pray for that child. And that takes the burden financially off you, but then still allows us to make a difference. And lots of people do that, don't they, as well, I know?
Yeah, that's right. We have small groups, you know, home groups that get together and sponsor a child. And we have individuals, we have families that do it. And we also have the opportunity for people who are unable to support financially, but are able to write to children. We have some supporters that are not able to write to their sponsored children. So we can get, we've got children that are looking just for a correspondence contact for somebody to write to them. So there's plenty of ways that you can get involved in supporting a Compassion child, either directly or as a group or via letter writing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as Christians as well, we feel a little bit guilty that we can't make a difference. Well, here's a way we can make a difference, you know. I think we're all, you know, dismayed at the level of poverty across the world, but this is a way that in the West, I mean, we've been given so much, and the Bible says for those who have given much, much is required. And so let me encourage you as your pastor, and that those who are listening into our webinar that don't come to Sedgley used to look at some of the stuff that's going to come on the screen in a moment in terms of sponsorship, because you can truly make a difference to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, well, when you think sponsoring a child costs £28 a month, and you might feel that that's a lot, and you might feel that that's not very much. But when we talked about a family living in extreme poverty at around £30 a month, what you can consider is effectively you're doubling that family's household income.
Yeah.
And it's and when you think about that, you're if somebody came to you and said, I'm going to bless you, I'm going to double your household income, what a difference that would make to your life. Mm-hmm. How grateful you would be for that. That's the difference that you can make. I heard about an African proverb. I'm going to tell you an old story now. There's an African proverb that says, anybody that thinks that they're too small to make a difference has never spent a night with a mosquito. The smallest things can make the biggest difference. Your contribution can transform the life of a child from living in extreme poverty to not just transforming their lives, their families' lives, their communities' lives as well. And we have so many testimonies of children that have been to our program that are doing incredible things, ministries that are touching thousands upon thousands of people whose sponsored children who have gone on to have children themselves, and they're the first children in generations not to be born into extreme poverty because of the difference that a compassion sponsor. And most of the stories we get about sponsors and the sponsored children, the sponsors are not wealthy donors, they're not millionaires, they're just ordinary people that have a passion to see children released from poverty, and they just write and encourage their children, and through the support of the Compassion Project as well, mm-hmm. those children give their lives to Jesus most importantly, but they go on to live faithful and productive lives, giving back to their communities as well. It really is a privilege to have the opportunity to get involved and support a child.
Yeah. So that £28 a month doesn't just put food in their bellies, does it? It impacts on their education and everything else.
Yeah, well, in most of the communities that we work in, schooling isn't entirely state funded. Families would have to pay school fees, and in many contexts, those school fees are just simply unaffordable. Sometimes the school fee for one child is more than the annual income of a family. So you can imagine, in contexts like that, those children just have almost no chance that they're going to be able to get a decent education and get a start in life and be able to transform themselves. And so that's a big part of what the support does. It gives them their school fees paid. It gives them books and equipment, their uniforms, and everything else they need to continue with their education for as long as they can. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, do not take it for granted that we live in a nation where your children can go to school for free, your health care's for free. There's a safety net in terms of even if you lose your job. We might not have everything that we want, but we're in a society that is well provided for. But around the world, that's not the case. It's this different story.
No, absolutely. And like any disaster, the COVID pandemic has hit the poorest of the poor hardest. Oxfam released a report late last year that said that the poorest communities will take 14 times longer to recover economically than richer communities like ours. We've already heard that our economy is growing again, that we're returning to pre-COVID levels by many measures. That's not the case in the developing world. Their economies were hit harder. Most of the families we work with work in the informal economy, so that they've got no job security. When lockdowns happened, they lost their income overnight. And the return to normality is much, much slower in those communities. So whilst we've all felt the pain and been affected in lots of different ways by the pandemic, it really is the poorest of the poor that have been hit hardest.
Yeah. Now, I know you've prepared some stuff for us, James, because one of the things that I want us to do on the back of this is to, as a church, seriously consider sponsorship as individuals, as a group together. And I know you've got one or two things you can share with us on your PowerPoint. And by modern technology, here it goes. We're going to share the screen, and you can see what James has been up to, and just maybe see some of the children that potentially we could sponsor, James.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just share my screen. So if you'd like to get involved in sponsoring a child, you can do that through modern technology. You can do that one of three ways. You can, using your smartphone, you can text the code sponsor SEDCC for Sedgley Community Church to 88802. Or if you're familiar with QR codes, there's a QR code on your screen. You can scan that QR code. Or there's a simple link, compassionuk.org/hope/SEDCC for Sedgley Community Church. All of those will take you through to a dedicated web page for Sedgley Community Church, where there are children that are waiting to be sponsored, children like Jackson, who's been waiting for 17 months. And so you can look at these children, and I'm just going to click on Jackson here, and you can find out about Jackson's community. He's one of 5 children living in his family. You can find about his project where he lives, and you can find out about his country, Uganda, and just see some of the statistics and the challenges that they face. Actually, I did a bit of extra research on Jackson's community, and where he lives, there is a 92% unemployment rate at the moment. Okay. Most families don't have a formal form of employment. It's subsistence living. They're living off the land, and they're exposed to all the frailties that lifestyle entails: food insecurity, lack of access to clean water, lack of medical facilities. The biggest stand up for me when I did a bit of research was that school fees in Jackson community are more than double the typical average family income. So when you think Jackson's one of 5 children, and there is just no way that Jackson is going to be able to go to school, or any of his brothers and sisters are going to be able to go to school without some kind of excess support. So it would be really good if during this time and afterwards, whether you could just prayerfully consider whether God might be leading you to come alongside and release a child from poverty. So I'm just putting up this screen on you again.
Yeah, do that there. I noticed I noticed there, James, Jackson's birthday was at the top, wasn't it? And I guess something that would be quite nice is to perhaps fancy a child that maybe shares your birthday, or
yeah, absolutely.
Or a special anniversary. Yes.
I mean, one of the things that I did, I'm blessed to have 3 children of my own, and so we sponsor 3 children as a family, and they're all the same ages as our own children. So we've chosen, I've got a boy and 2 girls, and we sponsor a boy and 2 girls that are the same ages as our own children. So people connect with a child and are drawn to a child for different reasons. It might be their name has a resonance, it might be their age, or it might be their birthday or day, or something like that. But it really is great, especially those children that, as you can see, have been waiting for a long time. It'd be really good to bring them some good news at this time, that they've got a sponsor, and they're going to start getting letters and start getting encouragement, and they're going to know that people are praying for them as well.
Yeah, and it would be great in some months to come for us as a church just to be able to put all those little faces up on the screen and say, here's some of our children, you know. And there's a scripture that talks about bringing our children on our shoulders, and I believe that's incredibly prophetic, not just our own children, but those that the Lord would put into our hands. And it would be remiss of us not to really make a difference to these kids' lives. So thank you for all your hard work, James. I'm going to invite James along to church in the next few weeks, just so you can meet him personally, and we can talk again. You want to have a chat through some of the things that he said. Again, what we've said on Webinar Wednesday, if you've got any information that you want to share with us or any questions, just email me at info@sedgleycommunitychurch.org. That's info@sedgleycommunitychurch.org. Or if you're on Facebook Messenger, just drop us a private message and we'll return your message back and let you know what we're up to. It's important that we keep the dialogue, and one of the things as a leadership team at church is that we want to stand alongside those that are making a real difference. And Compassion is one of those organisations that, you know, I look on and think they can really make a difference for people, and we want to be involved in that. So, James, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm sure it'll be a blessing to everyone that's watched what we've talked about today. Because I think sometimes we scratch our heads and ask the question, especially when we watch the news, how can we possibly make a difference? Well, here's one way you can make a difference right away. So click on that QR card, text in, go and have a look at the website. I'm guessing on the website all of those kids are there to have a look at, so you can browse through and see who we've got.
Yeah, you can connect with a child that, you know, whatever way that you're drawn to. So yeah, it'd be fantastic if you could follow that link and get on that and just have a look and choose a child and turn a new page and enter a new chapter in their lives. Do also take a look at our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. There's loads of videos. There's lots of testimonies of sponsored children and their journey that they went through, and they're amazing testimonies. So please do check that out as well, because that's really powerful and inspiring to watch.
Excellent. Well, thank you for bearing with us on this webinar Wednesday. What's the name of your dog, James? Everybody want to know.
This is Gizmo. Shall I go and get him?
Yeah, go and get Gizmo. Let's show the people Gizmo. And for you who think I'm under an anointing, that's just the sun shining through my window. So if I've looked like I'm angelic, that's not the truth, as you well know. So here we go.
No, he doesn't want to come. He's being grumpy.
That's a disappointment.
He's a sausage dog. He's a grumpy sausage dog.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, James, when you think about it, we spend so much money on our pets in the UK, and we think about the little that we have to spend to, you know, really make a difference to a child's life. As you say, that child, who knows what they'll do in the future? You know, could be a leader for their nation, you know, a minister in the church, you know, somebody that's going to make a significant impact on the world, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got we've just released a new video about Francisco. I've sent the video to you, so feel free to share that. Francisco grew up with his great grandfather sleeping in his mechanics workshop, and he's this year going to graduate from university with a degree. And his life, I mean, his dad was a criminal. He's in prison, and his life has just been transformed through being introduced to Jesus first and foremost, through the Compassion Project, the support and that the project has given him and helping him with his education, and also now he's back in the project, volunteering, helping the next generation of kids come through as well. So he's not just helping himself; he's giving back to his community as well. So just fantastic stories and testimonies all over the world from children that have been helped, but there are so many more that need your help too. So,
yeah, you can just imagine the smile on a child's face when they find out that somebody has said, I'm going to stand with you, I'm going to be your friend, I'm going to make sure that you get through school and, you know, that you got food to eat. What an amazing transformation.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing that you that you hear from children living in poverty is a lack of hope. That they don't dare to dream about the future. But what you hear also is that when they're given that connection with a sponsor, when they're helped in their education, they start to dream. They start to have hope for the future, and then they have hope for their children when they have a family of their own. They start to dream for them too, and that. What greater gift can you give someone than the gift of hope?
Absolutely. James, thank you so much. We know you've got a big job. You're looking after most of the Midlands, I know, for Compassion, dealing with lots of churches, lots of kids that you're getting sponsored. And so thank you for taking the time out. Thank you, Gizmo, for joining in as well. We really appreciate that. And hopefully we'll see you in church soon, James. So God bless you. All you're doing.
Can't wait to see you in person. Yeah.
No,
thanks, guys. Thank you.
Just going to pray for you as we go. Father, I just pray for Compassion. I pray for James, Lord, that you just give him the desire of your heart to see so many more people connect with the children of the third world, those that so desperately need our help and your hope. And so, Lord, I just pray that you'd bless him, that his ministry would be fruitful, and that in all that he does, that, Father, you'd see your hand upon it in Jesus' name. Amen. So Amen. Thanks, James, and we'll catch you later. Cheers. God bless you.
Bless you, Steve. Thank you.
Bye.